Hey Tony,
Hello, Katie. How
it
are
is.
you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It is nice to be here with you, and I know we've seen a lot of each other lately, but I'm excited about that. So,
Yeah, you gotta love Zoom.
well, for those of you that are watching, I'm here with Tony Gaddy. He is the what is your actual title?
I'm President, CEO of the Upstate New York Black Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
But
It's always I feel like I get to know people, and I ever think of what their actual title is. So, thank you
you
for.
know, a lot of times it's more about the work, so the title is kind of an add-on.
Yeah. Well, Tony, would you mind giving us a little bit of information about who you are?
Sure. Born and raised here. Albany, New York is home. Um, Graduate of Albany Academy, believe the year out. Um, Went to school at University of Chicago, transferred to the University of Southern California, both for the college experience and for warmer weather.
Yeah.
And I had family out in LA too, so I had a baby sister that I wanted to get to
Okay.
know day one, so to speak. So that was also part of the lure of transferring to USC. Came back. I left a few times again because there weren't opportunities here that intrigued me enough to want to stay.
Hmm.
I had a few businesses, clothing industry and music and entertainment, publishing. I still dabble in those. I have aspirations to get back into them eventually, maybe, time permitting. But I finally ended up staying when my sister and her daughters moved back. And, I wanted to enjoy being Uncle Tony. And
The capital
then
region tends to bring people back, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely,
Bring people
absolutely.
back
And
here.
and this time I decided to, stay with a little travel mixed in here and there when I can squeeze it in.
Hmm. Nice. Well, I'm so happy that you moved back because
I am too.
you're doing a lot of good work here. So
Thank
it's
you. Thank
amazing
you.
that you're back in the capital region and that you're able to kind of give us your expertise.
Thank you.
Do you mind letting us know a little bit about the Upstate New York Black Chamber of Commerce as well?
Oh, absolutely. So the Upstate New York Black Chamber is part of a national organization called US Black Chambers, which is based in Washington, D.C. We serve the upstate New York region, home base being here in the capital region, serving Albany, Troy, Schenectady, and Saratoga. We also serve the Hudson Valley area, so Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, Kingston, working our way up back towards the capital region to include Hudson, Catskill, and then Central New York serving Syracuse, Utica, and then Western New York, Buffalo, and Rochester. Those are our primary touch points within our market. Our organization is not limited to engaging in other areas. So our membership is as far as Los Angeles and as far south as Florida,
Oh,
based on the fact that those businesses have either current business in New York and need a voice, or they aspire to, expand into New York and
mm-hmm.
particularly the capital region. So we've been fortunate in our first year since launching in 2019 to be able to move around and understand that New York being what it is and the capital region kind of being the primary touch point for legislation and advocacy, which is our primary goal as an organization to serve our members. Um, we understand our value being based here in the capital of New York.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's amazing to be able to have members, I mean, all over the US is that's what shows when you have a network, right?
Absolutely.
That's
And again, I think we're fortunate that, U.S. Black Chambers has, about 145 chambers throughout the country, as well as the Canadian Black Chamber. So we're part of a larger, family. And we were fortunate to attend our first annual conference back in the good old days of 2019 when we can,
yeah.
be up close and personal with our business and social lives. And
Hmm.
the timing of that was very fortuitous for us as an organization to be welcomed into the organization, to have a presence in New York State, even though we do have a Long Island chamber as well,
Hmm.
but there was no representation, in this part of the state. And, since day one, the entire organization has embraced us, looked out for us, and engaged with us. And it's been really great for our first year and a half
That's great.
at the chamber.
So, I mean, we're here talking about networking and the importance of networking.
Yes.
Obviously want to get to know you a little bit too, but, I think the first time I met you, you mentioned like networking is really such an important thing to do. And I mean, it's really about connecting with people and getting to know people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain like what's the importance of networking to you? Because I know you had mentioned to me, it's not necessarily about who knows you, but about you knowing people, but who knows you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel that we're all, no matter what we do, hopefully we all understand that we're in the relationship business, and that, people, human capital is our most important resource. We tend to kind of overlook our resources in terms of, money and funding and lending. And that's, obviously that's very important. And we advocate strongly on behalf of access to capital now more so than ever. But we also understand that, the value really is inherently built upon the relationship that you establish and that you build, so that a stranger becomes an associate or an acquaintance. And over time, friends develop, and that's when you really start to move the needle on understanding the value of effectively networking too, as well, to build your relationship in a way that understands that you have to also be just as committed to your friends' success as you are to your own.
Mm-hmm. And so when somebody is looking, I mean, it's easy to know who other people are, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're, I don't know how many people you say this to, but I definitely heard it from you. Do you want to say kind of what that is that you talk about and why that's important?
Yeah, absolutely. I think early on, we're taught that it's not what you know, it's who you know. Over time, you understand it's just as important, if not more so, as to who knows you. Not by just name, but by the value of what you bring, behind the name or the organization that you represent. How, how much getting to know do you allow in your relationships and your networking, so that every time you engage with somebody, you're not always just talking about business. Sometimes it's good to just sit down and, have lunch with somebody and get to know them as a person, who they are, what they do when they're not working. The family, I think that's when you start to kind of transition, as opposed to focusing on transactions. And again, networking is such a broad term, but ultimately it's just about people, and finding value in people. Yeah. Forget about what they do and how what they do can benefit you. I mean, that's always kind of in the back of our mind, because we're in business and we're in business to be profitable. But I still have to, I prefer just to get to know the person just as much as I care about what they do and how it can help us.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's easier too, because networking seems a little scary sometimes, right? But if it's all about really connecting with people and understanding who people are and what they're all about, that's a little easier to take on.
It is. It is. It's sort of akin to, being the new person at school. Every time you walk into an event that, why you're there. But if it's not your personality to be outgoing and to walk up to people and introduce yourself, and that takes a little bit of stepping into the unknown and getting out of your own comfort zone to understand that I'm here to meet X number of people, and try to establish something with them that can move forward, that's mutually beneficial. And I think that is first and foremost how I walk into a room, whether or not I know anybody or I know everybody. I'm kind of outgoing anyway, so it's easier. But I know people, and I wasn't always outgoing, especially when I had a speech impediment. That was something that I really had to overcome. Be in a space where I felt comfortable speaking. Sometimes I still talk fast. It's just like I'm trying to keep up with, my brain and not get stuck on the words. So I've gotten better, but it's a comfort level that comes with networking. It just takes time and repetition.
So for somebody who isn't used to this idea of networking, maybe they haven't been to a networking event in the past, or maybe they've never thought about it this way.
Mm-hmm.
How does somebody get started in getting to know people?
I think the first thing is it's good to, especially if you're not comfortable doing it, if you know someone there or you were invited by someone that knows people there.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good gateway into it, because the pressure of having to introduce yourself is no longer a factor. But let's just say if you do have to walk in by yourself, be confident, and while you're there, know what you want to speak about. Perhaps do some advanced work on knowing who will be there, getting to know a little bit about those individuals in advance, so that you have something that you can listen
Mm-hmm.
to as well as talk about. That's also important. Have some preparation about what's going on currently in your field or in those group of people that you hope to speak with, so you're knowledgeable and that you can engage in conversations and contribute to them in a way that group gets a sense that this person knows what they're talking about, and they also know what I'm talking about too. That's always valuable. Listening is just as important. Also, it's important. I know I made this mistake early on. You want to get to know everybody. You want to just collect business cards and business cards and business cards, and you want to give yours out. Sometimes I know, I still have stacks of business cards that I've yet to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I don't want to, it's just because, it's on overload. So try to, narrow it down and be real focused, and understand that your chances are you'll be at another networking event really soon if you're strategic about it. Especially with the number of organizations we have around here, where a lot of the same people attend the same events. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the benefits of being in such a close-knit community, that you see, a lot of the same people on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy too for somebody to walk in a room and connect with people who look like them, or connect with people who they're already friends with, or
Mm-hmm.
So how does somebody step outside of that and really push themselves? I mean, right, it takes effort to go talk to some random person.
I don't think there's any formula. I just think literally you just have to do it.
Just push yourself.
You have to. There's no step A, other than take a deep breath and realize that you're stepping into an unknown, and embrace that.
Yeah, I love the idea of trying to understand who's planning to be there.
Yes.
Maybe looking at the Facebook event ahead of time, or if there's any information on the website about people who are planning to attend. That's a great idea, to kind of have an understanding of who might be there ahead of time and learn a little bit about them.
Yes. And sometimes if it's an event about a particular industry, you can kind of get a sense of who will be there. So those are easier ones to attend, as opposed to the general admission, where if you go to an event, everybody, so to speak, is there, and you'll recognize faces from media, or whether you've seen them. So that helps as well.
Definitely. I guess when you first walk into a room, it can be pretty intimidating, but even just setting goals for yourself as to, I want to meet 2 people tonight, or I want to connect with, I want to get 10 business cards. I love the what you said about business cards, and that they stack up, but you don't always know all the details about that person.
Right.
So I love the idea of really having some clear, tangible goals where, I want to get to know a couple people.
Yes.
And really learn who they are and what they're all about.
100%. That's very valuable. Absolutely. It took me some time to learn that. Try to get into a room and realize you have about an hour and a half of really good time, and you end up kind of doing the whirlwind thing, and you never really, you don't really engage to the degree that you would like to, because you're so busy focusing on the quantity and not the quality of the time you spend.
Definitely. But I mean, there's opportunities for networking every day. I mean, what are some of the experiences where you weren't expecting to kind of meet someone and didn't have that intention, but you were able to take that opportunity to really get to know somebody, and that became something that, you've kept with you.
I went to an event maybe a few years ago as a guest of someone, and it really wasn't a networking event per se, but because of the type of event it turned out to be a lot of, what they call, the heavy hitters were in
Mm-hmm.
the room. And so that was probably the one event where I kind of went um, in a more social capacity. And because it was such a great event, everybody was in a great mood. And maybe because the pressure was off of
Yeah.
having to kind of be on the clock, it made for a really great experience. So I always say, don't look to just go to business events. Try to have fun with what you do and make sure that you're every now and then you attend an event that's just for fun, because you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know.
What makes you passionate about networking? I mean, this is literally one of the first things that we talked about was the importance of it. I mean, what makes you so passionate about it?
People. I enjoy the human being experience as opposed to just, and it took me time to learn this too. Once I understood that it was more about engaging with human beings as opposed to just meeting people, things kind of changed for me in terms of enjoying the experience more. So that part of it, hearing about a person's endeavor, seeing the passion and excitement when they talk about it, because I can relate to that as well. Those are the kind of things that kind of made me really enjoy it more as just kind of a more than a perfunctory thing that I had to do because it was part of the job, as opposed to it was something I looked forward to doing because
Mm-hmm.
it came with the job or it came with the work.
Yeah.
So, like a business review event, they're great events all the time, but there's such a social aspect to meeting and seeing people there. They become some of my most enjoyable experiences because I get that fun
Mm-hmm.
while also learning and meeting people as well.
And at some point, if you're, around a lot of people consistently, they become your network, right? They become people who you're used to seeing, a little bit about them, so you can more easily get into conversations with them and
Yes,
kind of catch up.
yes. And so the results of that, you'll see them when your network starts to pass along information to you. Whereas before, because it didn't pertain to what they were doing, it would just go in the bin or go in the recycle, or it's because it has nothing to do with what they're doing. But
Mm.
over time, that relationship plus the time takes that information that might not be relevant to what you do, but they say, hey, this might be something that Tony or his members would be interested in. And because they have a relationship, now that thing becomes relevant when it wasn't before. So that part of it is also a great aspect of really intentional, sincere networking.
Mm-hmm.
Information that doesn't mean a thing to you, but the person that it might mean something to does mean something to you. Therefore, that information now becomes relevant.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because I think all of us, we have our own networks, and it is easier for us to kind of look upon certain people because those are the people we're around.
Right.
But when you can cross networks, it's so important because you're sharing your knowledge with other people and creating
Right.
connections
Right.
with people.
Absolutely. And sometimes even when you're in the same industry, but you might not be in the same part of the city. Like perfect example is, with Kate, you know, both chambers of commerce serving different markets, but because, the relationship aspect of it was kind of the focus, it's become more,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate the less obvious friendships that develop than the ones that I figure are the no-brainers.
Mm-hmm.
The unexpected ones that come from needing one person that opens up a doorway to, things that you hadn't even thought of. I mean, that part of what we do is, it makes work staying up, to unseemly, ungodly hours worth it because you just had a long conversation with a friend about business. I love that.
And I feel like there's certain people too that end up being these connectors, right? Where maybe it's somebody from a chamber or an organization that is really focused on connecting people.
Yeah.
But there are definitely certain people who tend to naturally kind of give out like
Yes.
information, right?
Yes.
Have you experienced that?
Oh, on a regular basis. On a regular basis. I'm very blessed to have met many people. I've met many more during this era that we're living, who maybe, especially being only a year and a half old as an organization, even though we've been doing this work as either entrepreneurs or advocates for much longer. So like all that experience kind of made the first year and a half as an organization, I won't say easy, but better. So I've been very fortunate to develop, friendship, allies, and partners, and as Amanda would say, co-conspirators in the work we're doing now. And it's always really first and foremost about valuing the person that we're engaging with. And we've been very blessed as an organization whose membership is diverse, equitable, and inclusive. I think that's been a huge part of it. That it's been made clear that even though we're a Black chamber, we're not just a Black chamber. Because if we just kept it in that through that lens, there would be certain businesses that couldn't be part of our organization because we don't have them here. So our job as an organization is to identify the businesses we want to have here, see if we can start those and establish those. At the same time, we have members that aren't Black that we can learn from, and I think that has just as much value to our members who are, Black, brown, or the marginalized aspects of our communities. Because, again, it's great to have members who are also can be teachers. That's part of the pipeline. We emphasize that, trying to connect people who are interested in things that are similar to more established things. Those are bridges. Those are opportunities. That's another networking aspect. It doesn't always have to be a networking event to network.
Definitely. And I think it's important, like you naturally connect with certain people, right? So it's important, like you said, to build these bridges and create spaces where people can connect that maybe would not have connected without that support.
True. Also, identifying common ground is very important, because once you establish a foundation of common ground, it makes it easier to have conversations about things that are different about each other. And those are basic principles that I think oftentimes, because they're so basic, they get overlooked. It's much easier to start a conversation about the thing you disagree the most about. You have years and years of things you have in common to stand upon. It's a stronger foundation so that disagreements don't become, barriers.
Definitely. And I think too, it takes those connectors to really think, what are the common grounds between these people that I can connect, right?
Right.
And I think that too, like when you're talking to somebody, it triggers you to think of, oh, you guys would connect really well over this.
Right. Or that aha moment when you realize that two people know each other already, even though you're trying to introduce them and they already know each other. Those moments are priceless, I'm sure you've had that happen a lot of times. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'd like you to meet. It's like, I know that person. That, now it's what you thought was a stranger situation has become three people who are connected already and just didn't know it. That, that ball rolls a lot faster. I mean, we're kind of going through that now with the things that we're working on.
Yeah.
We're getting to see it in real time that, those things they have impact.
So during COVID, I mean, like you can't really have networking events. I mean, we tried to put on ourselves the in-person event, and it was, really difficult to get people that were interested in gathering together, even with, very clear stipulations on how we were going to keep safety. So how have you noticed that networking has changed during COVID, or that it has maybe become easier?
It's evolved. I don't really think it's easier. I think it's easier to have meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But once you take the social aspect out of networking, it's not the same. You know, seeing someone on a screen, it can be engaging, it can be fun. There's nothing like going into an event, seeing familiar faces,
Definitely.
sitting down at the table, sharing a meal during one of the fancier events or at the after hours events,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what do you have? And that you can't replace that. You just can't. You can, and then people are not really ready to engage on the level that our businesses require. We're not used to saying we have to cap attendance at 50. That's unnatural for what we do.
Yeah.
At the chamber, at the bid, you're focusing on, how many can we cram in this space?
Yeah.
Not
how many connections can we build between people? Yeah.
Right. Not we can only have 50 and we can't count ourselves, and now that's only 45 or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can't really force that. It's going to take time, hopefully a little bit more focus and intent to reestablish how we can get back to doing business. Now, I don't want to say the new normal because I didn't really like the normal that we had. So I'm not going to use that phrase.
Definitely.
But whatever business as usual will become, it's going to take a little bit of time for those of us who best do what we do by being up close and personal. And there's really no way to get around that. So, we haven't done any networking because I understand we can't call it networking.
Yeah, you haven't offered any networking events during this time.
We've done some, virtuals.
Mm-hmm.
We've done some things, virtual. But again, because I understand networking a little bit differently, I don't use that word to describe it because if I can't hang out with you, in a way that I enjoy, and now we're really, I can't walk you over and say, hey, I'd like you to meet someone.
Mm-hmm.
That part of networking, you can't raise your hand on a Zoom and hey, I want you. It's not the same. So I'll call it something else. It's a meeting, but networking, TBD.
Are there any tactics that you have used during this time to continue to get to know people?
Pick up the phone. The old ways still work. Text. Obviously Zoom. GoTo, WebEx. I got a bunch of platforms that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
But when the old traditional ways are still just as effective. Pick up the phone. Shoot a text. Email. Sometimes what I'm starting to notice about email in terms of my own personal email communication, email has almost become the new snail mail.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, our inboxes are so flooded, depending on our routine, the inbox can stack up really quickly. So I encourage people that send me an email, like if it's really important, shoot me a text and say you sent me an email.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'll get to it at some point, depending on what my day is or what my time is like. But then you can't be mad at me or say, hey, did you get my email? I'm sure I did. Unless there's something wrong with the networking, the infrastructure. I say, yeah, I got it. I'm sure. That's not because I saw that I received it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I got it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I've been, harder to communicate with people during COVID. I think everyone is a little overwhelmed or a lot overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
by everything on their plates. So you're right. I mean, just picking up a phone or being able to kind of directly contact that person is it's a benefit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes there's a tendency because of this overabundance of technology, we forget that, we actually used to pick up phones and, there were actually pay phones not too long ago where you can actually put a quarter in and call someone. Like sometimes people forgot how to call people because there's also the time factor also. It's quicker to shoot a text or it's quicker to shoot an email. But how many phone calls can you really have in a day? That's you lose time on the phone, but you'd rather lose time than lose touch.
Definitely.
So it's a time management thing. Also, it's prioritizing. who you need to call based on, who's reaching out to you and what it's about. The sense of urgency to it with respect to a deadline. So I've had to figure out a way to communicate without networking based on these little subcategories about, this email was about X, it's due on this date. I have to I go through toner like crazy now because I'm still trying to find the best system to work and still stay in touch as opposed to how I'm used to doing it. And I'm getting outside a little bit more with the outdoor dining, so it's starting to get back to the one-on-one, the post-networking event thing.
Yeah.
Kind of skipping that step, but hey, let's grab lunch or a coffee outdoors somewhere because nobody's comfortable going indoors yet. So that part of it I'm starting to get back to, but the large gatherings are primarily, via, some platform. And if you set something up after that, great. But still, I want to get back to. That's why probably we were trying to do a social event. I think deep down we kind of knew that it was like, we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
And we weren't surprised when, it kind of unfolded the way it did. That's why we were able to pivot so quickly and come to a plan B that technically was kind of plan A, point one or whatever.
Yeah.
Because we knew it was possible that people might not be ready to, even with a cap on 50, because it only takes one.
Exactly.
So that part of it, I feel like we're skipping the group gathering and jumping right to, hey, you want to grab a coffee?
Which, I mean, maybe a little easier to have a real relationship at that point if you're able to really have some time to invest in that person.
Right. But I think what you lose by not having the event is the mood and the collective energy of a room when everybody kind of is in that space, essentially for the same reasons, is to advance their business or their organization in some capacity through networking. So, that the energy that comes from a room that's filled without the pretense, I want to say it's like, I want to say it's like going to a bar where you're like scared to ask someone, hey, can I buy you a drink? Or, hey, would you like to dance or whatever. When you go to a networking event, everybody wants to dance. And anybody will say yes to you, buying a drink. So that obstacle, that barrier, that fear is gone. That's what makes those events so impactful. If you walk in with any sense of fear, it's pretty much you that has to get over it. Like everybody else in the room may have to as well, because not everybody's a natural or a people person or good or even good with people. But in the networking space, once you understand everybody is there essentially to make friends or acquaintances, it takes a lot of the pressure off. And I think we all miss seeing each other like that. I really do know. I believe that 100%.
Yeah, you're right. It is nice to have that structure where that everybody else is kind of in the same boat. We're all kind of looking to get to know one another and build connections.
Yeah, where you check in at the table, you spend time looking for your badge, and you're having conversations right there with strangers who are also looking for their badge.
Definitely.
You're sitting at a table if it's a seated event, and you might not know everybody at the table, but you're kind of forced to introduce yourself. So that part of it, right now is gone. And I know we miss it. Maybe we didn't know how much we would because we took it for granted.
Yeah.
So
for networking in your everyday, right, without that event, and maybe not as much now, but networking in your everyday where you're getting to know people. I mean, you can meet anybody on the street, you can meet anybody in a restaurant, you can meet anybody while you're shopping, right? What are some of those tactics, right, that really just keeping an open mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Listening, asking questions so that you create an opportunity to listen. There's always like a rush to say, well, I do this and I do that. This is what my company is about. If you don't have a lot of time, you never end up listening to what the other person does with the equal amount of time. So the basics of asking questions so you can listen, remember what's been said.
Definitely.
Which is a balance because you're ready to kind of say what you want to say also. That the information kind of go in one ear and out the other. And you find out later that you missed something that was really important that you can't think of because you weren't really present and listening. But you can talk about what you do essentially if you're good at it in your sleep.
Yeah.
You don't really have to rehearse it or think it. But if you're thinking about what you want to say while the person is still answering the question, you're not really listening and you're going to miss something.
Yeah, it's about a conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Where you can have a conversation if you're thinking about what you're going to do next.
Right. That's why I kind of I try to use the word speaking, not talking. So
yeah, that's
nobody
great.
ever says you speak too much. They always say you talk too
much. I guess one more question for you. I think about a lot of businesses that, you're part of a community in your own city or your own downtown or your own main street. What's the importance of connecting with others in your community, and what's the benefit of that? That those that are directly around you, your neighbors, the people that you're surrounded with.
Sure. I think one, that human experience of caring about the other person as much as you care about yourself, so that you look out for one another, whether that's who you live next to or who you work next to. Support their business as much as you want them to support yours. Sometimes I drink too much coffee because I'm stopping by places to get coffee. This is if I can have a reason to walk in and say hello and see the place. It's just a matter of if you support and you show that it's genuine, eventually in some capacity that comes back to you in a way. It might not come directly from the person that you gave it to, and that's not the point. It's kind of what you put out there. That energy, it really does mean something. People want to be cared about. People want to know that you care, so that it's safe for them to show that they care. We're all trying to get over our own little, personal glitches, for lack of a better way to put it. The best way to receive it is to give it.
Definitely.
Maybe I'm fortunate because I was kind of raised, my parents are still good about the quality of human being they are, regardless of what they do or what a person does. You treat that person as a human being, no matter if it's the person that opens the door for you or the person that you're sitting down with when you get off the elevator. No different. No different.
Exactly. No, that's a great point. And I think that transcends into the business that's next to you, your neighbors, your coworkers, right? It transcends into all pieces of your life, right?
Yes.
It's getting to know people and really appreciating the bits and pieces of the people that you may not recognize up front, right? You may not recognize it by just seeing someone on the street.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. It's really that easy. Sometimes we tend to make things complicated, but it really is. It's simple. I won't say it's easy. It's simple.
The concept is simple.
Yes, the work is not. Right. In theory, it's very simple, but the work was never designed to be the easy part. That's the thing that we have to understand is I'm not. We're not reinventing the wheel. There are chambers of all, cities, cultures, or whatever. I don't think any of us are reinventing the wheel or coming up with, something that hasn't been done before. I think it's only things that we're trying to figure out a way to improve upon. We're fortunate to have chambers that we can lean on, and even, I think even business improvement districts, we can ask questions of you, Georgette over in Albany, Jim Salango out of the DSIC in Schenectady. I think, having that level of connectivity is just invaluable. Because you never know what somebody might know about something.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be comfortable enough to be able to ask that person. I wouldn't, like finding out you're a musician. You don't get to know that unless you take time to find out.
Exactly.
Forget about, oh yeah, I got a member that needs this and needs that, and oh yeah, call the Business Improvement District in Troy and ask for Katie. And yeah, and then we've talked about all that, but then, otherwise, we have a musician, wannabe guitar player having a conversation about business. That part of what we do, for me, I think will probably have a longer lasting impact than the success of any business endeavor.
Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to jump into conversations, right? Where you're like, I need this answer, or I need this information in order to be done with this call.
Right.
However, if I spend, 10 minutes to ask, well, how are you doing? What's up with you today?
Right.
How's your daughter? How is, asking just something to feel like you have that human connection and can be able to get to know one another a little easier.
100%. I firmly believe, to your point, that the transition aspect of like, know, and trust
Mm-hmm.
transcends any industry that we're a part of. If I like you, I'm going to want to spend enough time to get to know you.
Mm.
If I get to know you, I begin to trust you. And now the information that I'm privy to that I might not have trusted you enough to share with you because I didn't know you, let alone like you.
Mm-hmm.
And now we spent enough time where, I might know of a RFP that has nothing to do with what I do, but because I like, know, and trust you, say, hey, did you hear about, or FYI, it's not public knowledge yet. That kind of thing is what, that's where the business aspect of what we do, by taking the time to properly network and get to know people, that's when you start to see the benefit of engaging with people the right way on a human being level, as opposed to a business person title level.
Definitely. Well, Tony, I appreciate you being here. I think this has been a really great conversation. I know we talked about only being here for 30 minutes, but we went a little over.
Oh, okay. See, that's what I'm saying. See, that's what,
Right?
and that's what, and to the point, that's what happens.
Exactly.
What
Well,
happens.
any last, thoughts on networking, its importance, anything people should keep in mind when they're kind of going through their day and looking for these opportunities to connect?
Make sure that you understand that the person you're networking with is just as concerned about what's in it for them as you are what's in it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Listen attentively, take mental notes, and as soon as you separate from that person, write something down
That's a great
that
point.
you make sure you won't forget or you can't afford to forget. Always carry pen, always carry something to write with and something to write on. Even if you have the best phone in the world, always carry something to write with and something to write on.
That's great. Because if you don't know, you don't remember who that connection is, then how do you
That's
get
right.
it?
That's right.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And I look forward to future networking events with you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Always a pleasure to see you.
Well, have a great day. Thank you so much.
You too, Katie. Bye-bye.